Good morning, Nathan.
Hey, how are you? Thank you for having me today.
I'm well, thank you. Welcome to the monthly business forum. Today we have Nathan Monk, Executive Director of One Hopeful Place, and we're going to be taking a road trip tour of One Hopeful Place. So Nathan, give us a little bit about your history.
Sure. So I've been working in the area of poverty and homelessness solutions for about 15 years now. And one of the things that I have found probably to be the biggest issue is misconception. You know, we all have ideas about any subject matter, you know, and the further we get away from a subject matter, oftentimes the less know-how we have, you know. And so for me, you know, my family grew up in a very sort of, I guess, normal nuclear environment until suddenly, due to situations outside of my...
Yeah, and there's another panhandler right there.
You know, outside of my parents' control, we ended up homeless for a short period of time. And during that experience, you know, I was exposed to a lot of things. And that experience didn't make me, you know, a lot of people are like, and that was the moment I knew what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. Nothing about going through that was like, hey, I want to embed myself in the issues of poverty and homelessness for my whole career. But it did expose me to a lot of the problems that exist, not just within, you know, that culture, but also within our society as a whole. And really a lot of what ends up happening is that people don't know how to respond. They don't know how to respond to the guy panhandling on the side of the road. They don't know how to respond to, you know, addiction issues, mental health, veterans concerns, because I think we all want to believe that there's, you know, these systems in place that'll catch people if they fall, catch you and me if we fall. And the reality is, though there are some safety nets, many of those nets are very old, dry rot, and have a lot of holes in them.
Absolutely, and the chamber recognized the needs to address the homeless situation a number of years ago, and has since formed a separate committee and board to oversee One Hopeful Place. Nathan's been doing a great job, in my opinion. The facility has been growing. And one question I have, if I'm not very familiar with either the inner workings of One Hopeful Place, like you saw, we were just driving down the road and saw at least two homeless people panhandling.
Sure.
If we have this facility and we have the capabilities, why do we still see people panhandling on the corners of major intersections?
Sure. Well, one of the big reasons for that is just the fact that we don't have the capacity necessary at this point to house every single person who's living on the street, but we're very, very close. We currently have a 20-bed facility that is operating, and it is full 100% of the time. That being said, we are currently working on an addition which will add another 50 to 75 beds and give us the capacity to have a separate facility exclusively for women. And that's not existed in the community until now. A facility that is exclusively for women who are living on the streets that either don't have children or don't currently have their children with them. And so those two changes that are hopefully coming by the end of this year, I think will cause a great decrease in the number of people who are panhandling on the side of the road. Because for most people, panhandling is a response out of fear. I'm afraid that I don't know where I'm going to sleep tonight. I'm afraid where I'm going to get my food. I'm afraid where I'm going to get whatever resource I feel that I need in that moment. And so one of the things that One Hopeful Place does is that we reduce that fear. You no longer have to be afraid of where you're going to sleep, where you're going to eat, where you're going to shower, where are you going to use the restroom, all of those daily functions that we kind of take for granted that these folks who are living on the streets are living in fear of. I don't know where I'm going to have that need. It's not a want. You know, those are needs, and I have no idea where I'm going to get that need supplied.
Essential needs.
So once we get to that that capacity, we'll be able to see, I think, a massive reduction in panhandling. And for us, our biggest thing out there has been, I see a lot of people ask, what really happens for someone when they get to One Hopeful Place? Because a lot of people bring up concerns, and I think they're legitimate concerns. They're like, well, is someone going to get mental health care? Yes, they will. We just finished our medical facility out there. We will begin taking patients by the middle of the summer. And so, that's going to mean that people are going to be getting that mental health care, counseling, screenings, medication, whatever it is that they need will be supplied for them out there at no cost to them. And so that's a huge component, because there's a lot of people, you'll hear someone say, I hear it all the time, they'll look outside, they'll see somebody who's panhandling, and they go, oh, well, that person looks able-bodied, why aren't they working? Well, there's a fundamental difference between being able-bodied and being able-minded, and so there's a lot of people out there that may look to you or I physically capable of doing things, but they may not be mentally or emotionally capable of handling certain tasks until they get that medical care.
That's a very good point, the mental aspect of homelessness. So when a homeless individual makes the election or goes to One Hopeful Place, what would be the typical process
Sure.
in getting them involved and encouraging them to make the right decisions to get back on their feet if they don't have the desire to get back up on their feet on their own?
Well, one of the things for us is there isn't a typical situation, because there isn't someone who anyone who's out on the street, anyone who's experiencing homelessness is going through an atypical scenario, right? We as a society have created what we consider to be our baseline. So anything, anybody who's living on the street is outside of that baseline. And so their whole experience is atypical. And so one of the things that's very unique about the way that our program is written is that when someone comes to us, we don't say, and this is what you're going to do, and this is what you're going to do, and this is what you're going to do. We ask them questions. We put together an individualized case management plan for that individual based upon, the answers that they give us. If someone comes to us and they say, I don't have a substance abuse problem, I might drink a beer every now and again, like anybody else, but yeah, I'm not drinking. Well, we're not going to put them through the added expense and the added pressure of, substance abuse counseling or anything like that. If someone comes to us and they say, listen, I'm fully capable of working, I'm really good at keeping a budget. I just ended up suddenly losing my job, and my roommate moved the same week. So we might not be putting that person through the same sort of rigorous, budgetary requirements and all that kinds of stuff. And so each person is given this very unique, tailored case plan so that they know what their goals and their objectives are. And then we also know. And then we put together, we don't say, hey, you can only stay here for 2 weeks. We look at their whole situation. If someone comes to us and they say, listen, I'm a veteran, but I don't even know where my DD 214 is. And on top of that, I can't even remember what my discharge is and all that stuff. Well, we know we might be in for a 6 to 8 month long process as we work with the VA and work with other veterans organizations to get them through that process. So one of the things that is typical for every client, though, is that they're receiving a quality level of care and concern. When someone comes and stays with us, regardless of their circumstances, they're being met with zero judgment. They're being allowed to come just as they are, no matter if that's a high level of what we might consider a dysfunction. I mean, we've had people that have stumbled in, off the street, still intoxicated, and said, I don't know where to go, and we've watched that person completely and totally transform their life. And so it's all about looking to make a change for the client.
So understanding that there's not the typical patient or visitor, what goes on during the day outside of particular counseling or treatment for those that are at one hopeful place?
Sure. So for our clients that are able to work, if they don't have a job, then we are encouraging them to be out during the day, looking for employment. A lot of guys start at day labor halls and work their way up from that process. But generally, we have breakfast in the morning. A lot of our guys are working, very strenuous type jobs. So, they're out pretty early in the morning. So we have our breakfast buffet set up in the morning. It's very much like what you would see at a hotel, with fruit set up, hot meals that can be made, and then also we have cereal, milk, coffee, and the guys get up in the morning, they have their coffee, and then from the morning time until the afternoon, that's when we're doing our intake. So anybody who's coming to want to stay with us, we're doing their intake paperwork, initial consultation, all of that kind of stuff is happening during the day. And then of course we also are following up every week with our clients. So we're making sure that they're sticking to their case plan, doing the very best that they can. So during the day, there's a lot of follow-up meetings that are happening with clients if it's their day off, all that kinds of stuff. We do have a number of clients also who are handicapped to the point that they can't leave during the day, either due to severe physical disability that has them confined to a wheelchair, or severe mental disabilities that have them, just kind of confined within their own mind. And so for those clients, they're there with us during the day as we're working them through the process of getting into appropriate housing for their individual needs as well.
Understood. Okay.
Don't wait. Communicate. Make your emergency plan today.
So this is us right here, where this fence line starts. This is one of the things I'm really excited about. When we first got out here, we had this really big barbed wired fencing, and it just didn't feel very inviting. And one of the things that I really want for our clients is that they feel welcomed here. So this first building that you see right here, this is actually our medical facility. Inside there, 3 exam rooms and a big office and a waiting area. Clients will be able to schedule right here on site mental health exams, counseling. Their medication will be delivered right out here to them. And so that's not about keeping all of this insular as much as it's about, once you build trust with the client, convincing them to go off of campus and then build trust with a whole nother organization can sometimes be very, very difficult. And so this acts as an introductory point where we hope that once they move into their own housing, they will continue that relationship long term with their primary care.
Yeah, and the just the logistics of getting patients around town.
Oh, sure.
That will reduce the time and money involved with having services that need to be provided. You can provide them here on campus.
Absolutely. One of the first things I did when I came to Fort Walton is, and I do this in any community that I go into, is I do a personal street walk audit, where I actually go and spend a day or two walking from the central hub to all of the different locations where a person has to go to receive services. Mm-hmm. And the average person is walking, 15 to 30 miles a day just to receive care. This is our main building here, and this building is where we have our 20-bed facility set up right this second. Across the way, this building is where we are putting our expansion in. So actually our men's program will move into the larger building, because just by virtue of the numbers, there's more men living on the streets than women. So we'll move the men's facility into here. This will become our women's facility. So we'll be able to house 50 to 75 men in this building over here. and 20 to 30 women in this building here. Behind here are a number of schoolhouse portables. Those are actually going to be turned into single dwelling duplexes. So those will be units where if somebody maybe needs a little bit more time or a little bit more assistance, maybe they don't have a good rental history or a good credit history and they need some time to build that up before somebody will allow them to move in. This will act as a transitional housing unit for those individuals as they work their way through that process.
So are patients currently living in these duplexes?
No, that's a long-term project. That's kind of our phase 3. So getting this facility done was our first phase, and we consider that to have been a really positive first project that we have been able to really prove the value and the worth of the work that's being done out here. Last year we had 81 full-time residents with us. Of those 81 that stayed with us, 65% are no longer living on the streets of Okaloosa County, which is a huge number. And that cost an average of $1,500 per person from the time they walked in through the door until they moved into their own housing.
So what's the average length of stay? 3
to 6 months is the average, though we've had people that have come and stayed with us for just a week, that we really were just a gap service provider at that point. So this is the facility here. So we've got 10 beds set up out here. Everyone kind of starts here. And then we've got our computer center here where people can get on, check Facebook, do whatever that they need to do, fill out job applications, all of that kinds of stuff is all. Then we've got our kind of like day room area here. When the guys get off of work, the TV's off during the day. But this was a donation that was given to us by our fundraising committee last year. It was just something for folks to be able, once they get off of work, we want to begin that feeling of a sense of normalcy and all of that kinds of stuff. And so having the ability to create an environment of relaxation, I think is huge in that. So then we have down here our laundry facility. And so this is actually open to the public. So even if you are not a resident with us here, you have access to utilizing the laundry and also bathroom. So in here, this is the women's room. So we have feminine products. We have the stalls and then 2 showers. So if there's a lady that's currently living on the streets and she needs, access to feminine products, access to just general, hygiene products, all that kind of stuff, they are welcome here. And last year we had over 100 people that came out just for those services.
Wow.
Laundry and shower services.
Really neat.
Yeah, and that's also an access point for us to build that relationship, so that we encourage people to get on our waiting list, all that stuff. So we've already made contact with many of the women who will, like day one when we open this facility for women, we've already got that relationship built, and we'll be pretty full. So we've got these rooms down here, where the private rooms. These rooms can house up to 4 people each. And these are for our guys who are working, and so they've got the capacity to have a little bit more privacy and a little bit more leeway.
Understood.
So this building here is what we're doing the construction on next. So this will be the dining hall that you're looking at right here, but it will also be overflow. So if we were to ever have too much, the next room, which we won't film, is where we've got all of our cots left over from our cold night. But as you can see in here, this is where we'll put all the bunks. So this will have capacity for 50 beds. And it's also got the ability for us to add a second story if we ever needed to. But of course, my goal is to never get to that point.
Is to succeed, right?
Right. And so, we have opportunities for expansion that I hope we never ever meet.
Expanding services,
Right.
not beds, right?
Right. And so back here, this is where our industrial kitchen is going to go. So we've actually already got all of the equipment back here that was donated to us by Fort Walton Beach Medical Center. And so we've got all the parts. We've just got to put all the pieces together. So
That's encouraging.
So this will be the men's facility here. And then, like I said, that'll be turned into the ladies' facility. And then we've got a lot of land, open land that we're still kind of putting together and envisioning what we can do. And then right around this bend here is the last little piece of the puzzle, where we've still got some city workers that will be moving out of this complex in October of this year if everything goes to plan. And so these two buildings will also become part of our overall campus. So this building here that's being used as the city offices will actually be turned into a community resource center. So we will have offices there that can be used as satellite offices for any of our partner organizations. And then this blue building here will be turned into our community center. So that'll be where we have, where we'll move our AA and NA classes to, our finance classes. If any of the churches that come out and support us, if they wanted to have a voluntary church service or something like that, that community center would be where all of those things take place. So even down to job training, GED classes, all of that kinds of stuff will all happen there in that community building and provide people with that opportunity. So all of those classes will be and services will be voluntary additional services that somebody can tap into if they want them.
We're here at the landing now with Nathan Monk, Executive Director of One Hopeful Place. The landing was a hotbed for domestically challenged inhabitants before One Hopeful Place was in existence. Here this morning, there's people walking around. It's not a place for homelessness right now. So I credit that to the success of One Hopeful Place. Nathan, when you see someone standing on the corner panhandling for money, do they know that One Hopeful Place is an option? How is the word of One Hopeful Place spread inside of the homeless community?
Well, one of the first things, I started struggling there with what's the right way to address the issue. Right. The word that we use is people experiencing homelessness. Because homelessness is something that someone's going through. It's not something that they are, right? It's not an identifier. It's something that you're going through in a very finite period of time. It had a beginning and it can have an end, And so for people who are going through that experience, most people in Okaloosa County know that we exist because they've engaged our services in some way, shape, or form, either during the cold weather, inclement weather service that we've provided, or they've come to us for showers. We give out meals throughout the week. If anyone comes to engage us throughout the week and they show up, we ask them, are you hungry? Is there something we can do to help? So even if if we don't have a bed available right then, we try and meet the immediate needs. So for us, there's that point of engagement, but there's also the fact that me and my staff come down at least once a week and do a walkthrough of the parks, the campsites, stuff like that, and make that one-on-one engagement and introduction, hand out business cards, and I have a presence set up both at the Chamber of Commerce and out at One Hopeful Place. So if you want to come by and pick up our business cards so that you have something that if you see someone and you think maybe they don't know, and that you can give out and encourage them to come and make contact with us. at the very least get on our waiting list until we get that second building up and operational. You know, we did talk a lot about how there is still a visible presence. You do still see some people panhandling, things like that. There has been a reduction for sure. And as you can see, when I first came here to Fort Walton and started working with One Hopeful Place, the landing was where I first came to kind of get an understanding of what the situation was here. When I got here, both of these benches and picnic tables were completely full of folks who were displaced. The gazebo was full of folks who were displaced. And as we're here now today, that's just not something that you see. And one of the things that I like to remind people is our objective should never be to get someone out of the park. If that's our mindset, then we're entering in under a wrong way of looking at things. Our objective should be to change why someone is at the park.
Right.
It should be that we're changing the fact that they're no longer at the park because they have to be here because they have nowhere else to be, and that they're here enjoying the park for the same reason that everyone else is there enjoying the park. And if we can change that sort of thinking and way of heart being, then it changes our whole relationship in the community. And so for us, we've seen a great reduction because, like I said, there's 50 some odd people last year that are no longer on the streets in Okaloosa County as a result of One Hopeful Place being around. So that is what accounts for. This isn't somebody who isn't here because they were arrested for sleeping outside. This is somebody who isn't here because they found somewhere to be permanently, and that's huge.
And you make a good point of, if you want to just minimally help, pick up some of those business cards, and if you want to get involved with the homeless initiative, hand out those cards that say where they can go to get them to One Hopeful Place.
Sure.
Like you said, you can find those at the chamber. You can also find them at One Hopeful Place.
Absolutely. And one of the things I tell people, you know, I may be the executive director, but I'm down in the dirt with everybody else every single day. On every single business card, on every piece of literature, my personal cell phone number is on those. And that's accessible to not just the donor, but to the client as well. You know, that you can call me and get actual access to me, you know, whenever there's a concern.
Absolutely. Well, we've had Nathan Monk with us, the executive director of One Hopeful Place. I do appreciate your time.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
And look forward to many more years of success.
Thank you.
So thank you for joining us on this edition of the road trip of the Business Forum, sponsored by the Greater Fort Walton Beach Chamber of Commerce with help of RJ with Emerald Coast TV.